Hi, Pim. I'm a bit confused this morning because, in Bonita there are two types of variables. There are the business variables and the process variables. Process variables. But why there are these two things? What should I use?
Hi, Tuyo. Yeah, nice to see you. That's an interesting questions, by the way. Well, there's not a true-false answer here. It's you have two different mechanisms, and then you can choose between the two mechanisms. It's like you have a bicycle and you have a car, so you choose. And the two mechanisms is just visible here. See, this is my studio here. And you can choose here on data if you want to have the business variable or the process variable.
Okay, I understand, but if in my process toy request I have some business information, what should I use then?
It's really depend of the usage. If you want to have public information, because business data is really a public information, it's like you have a database and then all the different process can see the record that one process save. So business variable is more as a public, and then you have to design the business data completely independently of one process. Or the process variable is more like a private informations. You access that only in one process, and it's not possible for another process to access this information. But on the way, when you have a new version of the process, you can change completely the data model because it's completely private of one process. So my question is, do you want to have a public information, so only a private information for each process? That's the question.
Okay, but for me it's the same. But if I have to do process variables, I read here that I need to write a lot of them. Is it correct?
Yeah, I see what you mean. Look, you can do that exactly, or some people do that. You add here, for example, first name. Let's say I want to save a list of a contact, and then the last name, and so on. And then you have here a lot of email, a lot of data and record, and you say, oh, I want to manage the contact of an employee and then the contact of a second employee or whatever. So you have to come back and say, oh, it will be first name of employee or something like this, but a certain employee and so on. So you may have 10 and 10 variable, and it's definitively not good because it's not really easy to manipulate. And the second is not, if you want to add an employee or personal information or a manager or whatever, you have to duplicate all the variable. And what you have to know is for each variable, Bonita will do a SQL request for that. So it's definitively not a good way to do that. Perfectly right with that. So with Bonita, we have definitively another solutions. You have to open an Eclipse or whatever. You create a classes like contact here, where you put all your different attributes. You can add the getter and the setter. It will be very easy to manipulate after. So let's say I have a classes. I generate a jar files, and then coming here, dependency, manage dependency. You just import the jar files that you see I already did here. That's it. And now look, I can add my contact, employee contact, and I would choose object, click on browse, and here you see you will show you the contact because you import that in the studio. So now the studio knows that classes. Import it. And that's it. So let's delete that one. That is there. And delete this. And delete this. And I can add, for example, another classes. Contact manager. And it's easy to manipulate because you are in a script, so you just need to return the contact like this. Come on, sometimes. Okay, I have to return a contact. Oh, why is still a string? It's not correct here. That's because I didn't change it. Java, browse, contact, yes. And now I can do that. And you know, I can create my object or whatever. You know best. Look, I love that functions. Okay, can I finish? If I have on a step, like I choose an operations, can add, can select my variable, and click on take value off and change to use the Java method, and then the Bonita Studio can explain me. And you see I have all my theta. So I can just set one attribute like this. And when I deploy, no worry because the WAR files, the jar files will be included in the process and you don't need to manage that. You can check that by in configure here and have a look in the Java dependency. You see it will add automatically my my element. It's not here, but it will do that for me automatically.
Okay, I understand. But what are the other constraints of these process variables?
You have two kind of constraints. The first is this is a business process variable and it's saved in the database and we serialize the information. So that means if you ask me, okay, I want to populate to display a report and I want to display all my contact with the name and so on, it will not be possible because in the database we save the serialization. So it's an XML. It's just you have to go by the API to get all the different process variable and then to build your list. So it takes a lot of times because you need to do one Java call, so one SQL to collect one variable per one variable. Second, keep in mind this is a private information. That means if another process, here you build a lot of contact, if another process want to access this information, it's not possible because it's private. And when the case is finished, the information is archived. And if you delete the case, then the information is deleted because it's directly attached to the case. It's a private information. So you are ready to balance between private and public.
Okay, I got it. I will use business variables then. But how can I save documents into business variables, please?
That's an excellent point. Actually, the documents are only a process variable. It's available here. You select the pool and you have the document here. If you go to the business data model, you may have some attribute here, but this attribute is only basic and the business data model does not manipulate the look here. If I have an attribute, you see it's only basic here, and we don't manipulate the blob or the blob in the database. So what is your alternative if you want to do that? So you have to keep the document actually in the process variable, but that means it's not easy to access it. And when you delete the case, the document will be deleted. Or you can try to save the document as a text, and then you need to encapsulate the document to encode it and to save that as a text, because in the text you don't have any limitations actually. You can say a text and give very large limitations. Here, you don't have limitations. The string you have a limitation, but the text is not limited. But because we pass that in the SQL, you need to encode the document. If you try to save directly the document as a binary, it will fail in the save. Or you can save that in an external system like, I don't know, Google Drive or Documentum or whatever, and just save in the BDM the reference of the element. And I hope one day we'll have the document here in the business data model as well, because it will be so helpful.
Do you have any other suggestions regarding business variables, please?
My main advice here is when you design a BDM, business data model, you really need to think globally. Don't try to think only about one process. You have to think for all your database, because what you are building here is not an information for one process, but it's an information for your complete server, your complete platform, for all the different processes. So keep in mind when you define your BDM to say, okay, I want to define another customer or another invoice, whatever, I have to think not for only one process, but in general. Okay.
Okay, I like it. Thank you very much.